Hello, my name is Charles Lettenmeyer and I'm here to talk about basic metrology or the inspection lab. Here is where we do all our precise measuring, and we can measure pretty close in this room. First thing I want to cover though is basically care and maintenance of the room. In order to achieve a high level of accuracy, it's important to make sure that we keep the room at a reasonable temperature. Now, this particular room isn't as closely held as most are in industry. The industry standard is about 68 degrees, and very precise rooms will only allow certain people in, or a certain number of people in at a time, because the body heat that's generated is enough to change the temperature level of the room. This is very important when we're doing some very, very precise measuring, because everything that we touch, everything that we handle is affected by the temperature of our bodies, the temperature by just people standing in the room. So a couple of basic rules that I want to go over. One, try to keep the doors of the room closed. I mean, we're pretty good about keeping this room within a degree or two. And again, this is a learning institution, so we're not held to very strict guidelines with that regard, but it is important to try to adhere to those and practice those best practices that you're going to be using in industry. Also, when it comes to handling the stones, okay, we have a number of granite stones here at the college. It's important that you don't put your hands on the stones because that transfers heat. It also transfers oil and dirt into the surface. So you'd be cleaning the surface very often. So no hands, no elbows. Don't grab a piece of paper and start writing on a piece of paper directly on the rock. Not a good thing to do. Treat these with an extreme amount of care and they'll last a very long time. We've had these stones here at the college for many, many years, and the only reason why they're still serviceable is because we are very sure about how well we're taking care of our granite surfaces. Now you can see I'm putting my fingers right on the very edges of this. This is okay. I'm just on the very edge, but don't put your hands on, don't put your elbows on, don't lean up against the stones. And when you're putting something on the stone, make sure that you do so very, very carefully, especially if it's something heavy. I have a cylindrical square here. This thing weighs probably a good 25 pounds. So if I were to take this and then just drop it onto the granite, it would chip it and it would cause a scar in the stone. We never want to do that. So you're taking something heavy, something awkward especially, bring it up to the edge of the stone just like this, and then slowly roll it up onto the surface. And the same is true when we're talking about even smaller pieces like this 1, 2, 3 block. If you're talented and you've done this a number of times, then it's okay to go ahead and put it onto the stone. But if you notice, I started with my finger just past the edge of the part, and then I brought it down to the stone, and I used that as a gauge to help me lower it onto the stone. Otherwise, you can do the same thing I did with the cylindrical square, and that's to start at the edge and then bring it over onto the stone, and then you can move it into place. Now the cleaner that we use is a water and ammonia solution. You just spray it on and then you wipe the stone clean until it's dry. So you keep wiping and wiping and wiping until the stone actually comes back completely dry. So the main things to remember here about this particular room especially, do everything that you can to keep the stones clean and protected, and we don't do anything that would cause any harm. I've seen some pretty horrific things even done to these stones and it's okay because people are inexperienced, but just dropping things onto the stone, so that's a major no-no. So please be careful and keep the doors closed and don't transfer any heat.